Welcome to the Safety Doc Podcast with your charismatic host and prominent safety expert, Dr. David Perrodin. Be entertained and informed as the Safety Doc discusses both best and bizarre practices in safety preparation and crisis response. The truth will keep you safe. Follow Dr. Perrodin on Twitter at SafetyPhD.
This is Dr. David Perrodin, and I want to thank you as we begin another journey into school and community safety. If you're looking for industrial safety expert, Appalachian State University professor Dr. Timothy Ludwig, please visit www.safety-doc.com. Again, that's Dr. Timothy Ludwig at www.safety-doc.com. Hi, everybody. This is Dr. David Perrodin, and welcome to Safety Doc Podcast 58. So, today we are going to be talking about video game addictions. We're in a time right now when we have the World Health Organization and the American Psychological Association kind of duking it out on whether or not to formally acknowledge video game addictions, basically as a disorder. And there's not a big stretch from that to becoming a disability. And once that starts, are we going to have people diagnosed with a disability in gaming, which then is going to, you're not going to have to attend work. You're going to be in therapy because of gaming addiction. Are you going to be able to obtain benefits because of these things? I don't know. But I am from the position. Now, I'm not a medical doctor, so I'm giving you the social sciences perspective on this. I don't buy into this. I don't buy into this at all. And I'm going to give my rationale for that. And I think we are completely going down the wrong direction with trying to pathologize video game addiction. Hey, when I was in college, when I was growing up, I loved playing video games. And sometimes I would play all through the night. On Christmas Eve, many years ago, I was maybe 10. And I got an Intellivision gaming system, and my brother and I played until the sun came up. I think we played basketball on the Intellivision. And I remember in college, my roommates and I would play a lot of competitive games and sports on the different Segas and Xbox and different systems and things like that. But we always seemed to have a balance. We always knew when to study, when to play and things like that. So I don't like where this is going, and I am going to read two articles or pull from two articles and then one comment section, and then also go through something which is called the Bergen Social Media Addiction Scale, which is a brief scale. It's a questionnaire, basically to identify if somebody has this disorder. And I'm going to read through this. First of all, I'm not a big fan of surveys versus a qualitative interview where you can capture more context and follow-up questions versus surveys are very one-sided. And if a person interprets a term and they're not sure about it, they can't really ask a clarifying question. But anyway, I can't believe this is where we're at, folks. I am opposed to this. Let me get into it. So we are talking about Safety Doc Podcast 58, Video Gaming, the System. Before we get into that, a little anecdote. I came home this week, Poland, excuse me, folks. Wow, I said the humidity is still low. We're out of the cold snap, so it was actually 55 degrees today. Remember last show a week ago, it's like -4, 55 degrees, and then it dropped down to like 17 during the day. So just crazy weather, but it does not help the humidity at all. It keeps the humidity really low. We don't have any snow outside, so yeah, just things are really, really dry. I came home and my front yard was marked with those little markers and the flags, and I could kind of look where they were marked and measured how far they were in from the road, and then realized, oh no, the city is contemplating putting sidewalk in front of my house. Now, folks, we need to rewind back to 2002 when I moved into this house. Our neighbors got together with my wife and I and said, listen, there's a movement to put sidewalks throughout the community. And we don't believe there need to be sidewalks right here because the roads are wide. And they had, I don't know, whatever rationale. So they basically opposed it, and defeated it. Now, with that said, we are located 2 blocks away from kind of the campus for the schools, meaning, the elementary school, middle school, high school. So, I mean, it kind of does make sense to have sidewalks pretty prevalent throughout the area. But, with that said, so yeah, I'm like, oh no, because that gets assessed back to your property. So I don't know what's going to happen. I've read some things in the paper that they're checking out the viability of sidewalks in certain areas. But I know when I bike in summer and go through the community, I can see sidewalks, that are showing up in different places. And if you build new now, you have to put sidewalk in, which is kind of an odd appearance because you can have new homes situated around existing homes, and the new homes will have a sidewalk which will just terminate on both sides into grass. So yeah, if it happens, it happens. Come on, it's sidewalk, But anyway, let's get into the first article. So this was published on January 8th, 2018 by Phoebe Weston from the Associated Press. And the headings here: Apple, the company, must fight toxic iPhone addiction among children. Urge 2 large investors with $2 billion in shares. So investors are trying to say, Apple, come on, you need to step it up here with your phones. We need more tools to help parents limit what kids can access on the phones or how much time, and really putting this on Apple. Now, it's interesting because the partners are New York-based Jana Partners LLC, which I'm not sure what that is, but the other one I do know is California State Teachers Retirement System, or CalSTARS. So very interesting that CalSTARS would be in this, because obviously they're very vested in this, of maybe getting a lot of complaints from teachers saying, hey, kids are using their phones in the classroom and it's disruptive. And CalSTARS is thinking, yeah, maybe we can exercise some pressure onto Apple to try to get more control. Now, this is just on Apple. I've got a Samsung, and how many different devices are out there? But so anyway, yeah, okay. So in this article, so you have these 2 players, Jana Partners and CalSTARS, big shareholders of Apple. I mean, significant shareholders, but so among their proposals, they recommend the company enhances mobile device software so parents have more options to protect their children's health. Collectively, the pair control $2 billion worth of Apple shares. Gotcha. All right. There is a developing consensus around the world, including Silicon Valley, that the potential long-term consequences of new technologies need to be factored in at the outset, and no company can outsource the responsibility, the letter said. Okay, come on. I mean, really, you are putting this onto Apple to say, hey, our kids are addicted to phone. First of all, kids, everybody, adults, grandparents. I mean, if you have an iPhone and iPad, everybody's using these things. All right. So this is scapegoating. I don't like this at all. This feels very much like that movement. Remember the movement for the healthy meals during the Obama administration? Let's get rid of the sodas, processed snacks, and all of that to fight obesity and things like that. And, well, yes, I mean, those things are out there and kids can choose those, but this really comes down to parenting, okay? I mean, it comes down to parenting. And can you limit access to some of these things? You certainly can, to some extent. I mean, if you're having, machines like a soda machine on campus or whatever, and even, with the phones, if you have policies where you have phones that can be used at certain times during a class and other times not, but again, this is really overstepping. And this, I think, is parental role. I don't know, this outsource of responsibility to me, this is like you're handing a kid, it's like you're handing them a knife or something like that. And say you have to be careful with it and stuff it's a phone. So it's a phone, but it's a phone. It also communicates. Yes, it does have access social media and things like that, but you can get the weather on it. You can get a map on it. There are so many universal design for learning features built into a phone, like, magnifying text, reading text out loud. These are very, very good things. I think back to, I think it was my dad talked about when he was in college and the calculator kind of became, quote unquote affordable, like Radio Shack was selling calculators. And, so 1960s or whatever. And a calculator, a basic calculator, okay? A basic calculator would cost a couple $100. And, and that was the debate back then. Do we allow people to have calculators or do we not? Because then they're not going to learn the fundamentals of math and it's all going to be too easy. And we don't have that debate anymore. Come on. That calculators, but this is similar in some aspects to that. Now it has a whole social media component and other things, but it is one of those things where you date it back to the 30s. And I remember my grandparents talking about, how they there was a concern from their parents of you're sitting in front of the radio box too much, listening to the pirate, show or Little Orphan Annie or whatever it was. And then, what was eventually it's TV and stuff like that. And, so it's not like we haven't been down this road kind of before. But anyway, let me keep going through the article. Apple can play a defining role in signaling to the industry that paying special attention to the health and development of the next generation is both good business and the right thing to do. Again, I don't know. I think it's blaming Apple. And again, look, it can be used for good or for bad, and there are so many apps that can be there to benefit, students too in apps for identifying, zones of regulation, of biofeedback, whatever it can be. Apps to learn different languages. I don't know. It's super frustrating to me that they're saying our kids are using their phones too much. And part of this needs to be an introspection and a reflection back upon yourself. And it's like, you know what? My daughters and I, my wife, this weekend, we played Monopoly, two games of Monopoly, board Monopoly. One, the board game. One was the Ghostbusters version. Another one was a different version. So a fun twist. And my daughters are 7 and 11. And we played, the first game was 5. Well, we played 3 games. First game, a couple hours. And the second game was 5 hours long. And my daughters loved it. They were engrossed in it. And they're wanting to make the deals and they're strategizing. And we're having fun and we're laughing and razzing each other a little bit. And of course, like right away the next day is like, let's carve out time. They want to carve out time, for that. And two, we're working then on people, you get to be the banker this time, you get to be the banker, you get to control the properties and hand them out. Okay, it costs this much, so how much money do you have to have? How much money do you get back? Tell, what strategy, what's not strategy, and just even, turn taking, fair play, and if you get frustrated, if you don't know how to handle that. But, who does that anymore with kids? I'm saying, if people are saying we do this and we're being outcompeted by social media, no, we had 2 iPads on a table 3 feet away that weren't even touched, by the girls or any of us during this time, or that we checking phones or anything. No, this anyway. All right. This article goes on. They recommended Apple establish an expert committee, including child development specialists, and offer more information to researchers. More than 10 years after the iPhone's release, it is a cliche to point out the ubiquity of Apple's devices among children and teenagers, as well as the attendant growth in social media use by this group. Okay, one is, you don't think that Apple already has an expert committee that studies this and studies the impact that the iPhone has on different ages, different populations. Of course they do. It's very sophisticated. The user interface and that they can keep people engaged. Just like TV. I mean, TV does, people write books. I mean, they do their studies to keep people engaged. And especially like in the video game industries, it's very much of studying like when people get the little dopamine rushes so they continue in games. But, it's not like this doesn't exist. Like they're naively putting this out there. And again, if they made a product that was so boring or complicated and just didn't have a user interface that was of benefit or that provided benefit before entertainment, like this, they're portraying this as an entertainment device. It can be an entertainment device. It can be a high-end scientific device. It can tell you the weather. It can, again, give you your location. It can allow you to do research on any number of topics. It can, allow you to FaceTime with relatives that are not near. I mean, so anyway, yeah, like this committee doesn't exist. Come on. What is less well known is that there's a growing body of evidence that for at least some of the most frequent young users, this may be having unintentional negative consequences, the letter said. Yeah, everybody knows that. That's obvious. The letter cited various studies and surveys on how the heavy usage of smartphones and social media negatively affect children's mental and physical health. I talked about that in the last podcast. That's well known with millennials, with Gen Z, but it's pretty much throughout. It's not this. The heavy usage of, you got to go beyond this. Why are you doing this? It's because, I mean, this is you have to have agency and purpose and teaching perspectives and teaching debate and how to use these tools to not obtain your sense of worth. So, which kind of comes through goal setting and some other things. So again, I think this is scapegoating. Examples include distractions by digital technologies in the classroom, a decreased ability of students to focus on educational tasks, and higher risk of suicide and depression. Okay. So that's where we definitely get this California retirement fund kind of creeping in here. Examples include distractions of digital technologies in the classroom. Yeah, maybe it's more exciting than what's being taught. Or then use technology. I've seen teachers who have kids get out their smartphones and they text a certain number in, and it's on a smartboard, and it might be like a survey, or as a question. And teacher will say, like, which one of these would you do? Like, which one of these scenarios? And they can actively see as they put in. And you don't have to make it where you are teaching independent of the technologies. The technologies can be integrated, and you can also have times when you're not using the technology. You're saying you can't. This is a technology-free time. Now, with that said, I also think it's teaching. I don't think it is all reasonable in this day and age to tell people, you need to, even staff, you need to keep your cell phone out of your pocket, locked away in a desk drawer while you're teaching and things like that. I mean, no, I think at this day and age, I mean, those things are with you. Now, if it buzzes and you check and, I got a Facebook like because of, hey, I made this awesome bowl of oatmeal this morning and I put raspberries that look like a smiley face. Yeah, that's garbage. But I mean, again, it is a tool that you have, and it's a tool. What if there was an evacuation, an active shooter situation? I mean, it is something that you have that you can responsibly use. So I think and it gets this higher risk of suicide and depression. Yeah, social media is external validation. It's your definition of self.
Thank you for tuning in to the Safety Doc Podcast with the nation's leading safety expert, Dr. David Perrodin. Author, radio show host, university instructor, researcher, expert witness, and consultant. Powerful testimonials. Dr. Perrodin has a strong reputation as the go-to safety consultant, and he was still able to exceed our expectations. When we went looking for an expert in the field of crisis preparedness and prevention, David was the single person we pursued. Not easy stepping into the touchier subjects of life, but Dr. David pulls it off. Take a listen. Now, back to Dr. David Perrodin and the Safety Doc Podcast.
So here we go. A survey by the American Psychological Association, the APA, found 58% of U.S. parents worried about the influence of social media on their children's well-being and felt they were attached to their phone or tablet. Okay, I mean, I would say that's, if you surveyed, that's completely what I would expect. I would probably expect that to be higher than 58%. What you're missing here, okay, surveys. Surveys are not as good as qualitative interviews. If I survey somebody that's one-sided, I don't know if they're understanding the terminology. People typically rush through surveys. If I have a qualitative interview, I'm interviewing people. I then am coding out what they're responding through that interview. I can ask follow-up questions. They can ask me and they can say, I don't quite understand this term. Can you give me an example of it or something like that? That is much better than just saying like survey. Survey says surveys suck. So even the best surveys, I know people who have worked for the top companies for huge amounts of money who say surveys are a roll of the dice. So I'm all this stuff, survey this, survey that. Yeah. And I'm going to give you some examples of that actual Bergen survey, which is just out there. So, yeah. All right. While tech companies have not acknowledged openly that their gadgets may be addictive. See, gadgets, that's a key word, gadgets. Oh, your phone or whatever, it's a gadget. Well, no, I mean, it's high end. I mean, this is more computing power than Apollo 13. It's not a gadget. It's not a fidget spinner. I mean, this is very sophisticated. And yes, does it have games in it? Does it have access to social media? But it can also give you the entire encyclopedia at the click of a button. It can triangulate, your positions and do scientific calculation. I mean, it's amazing. Plus the universal design for learning, which for people with disabilities or people, reading, visual acuity problems or auditory problems. I mean, these are incredible assets to society. They're not gadgets. All right. Okay. While tech companies have not acknowledged openly that their gadgets may be addictive, some Silicon Valley insiders have begun to speak to media about how gadgets, mobile applications, and social media sites are designed to be addictive and to keep users' attention as long as possible. So what? I would expect that. Who in the world is going to design something that is not going to keep your attention? Casinos are designed so they don't have windows and clocks, and that they have weird carpet patterns that kind of lead you around so you're not really quite sure how to get out. Look at any retail store. I mean, how it's designed. I mean, to keep you there, to present you with more items before you. This is all part of, marketing. And it's not bad. I mean, here's the thing. If I'm buying a product, let's even look at user interface and things like that. I use my Garmin. I went down to Florida. My Garmin helped me get to Florida. The Garmin was very intuitive and I liked it, but I tried out some others and I didn't like those as much because I thought they were a little harder to program, and I didn't like the way that they brought up the maps, and the Garmin kind of worked for me. So it had to be captivating and more intuitive, and so I like that. That's my style. It's the same thing when I pick out like my camcorder. There's a certain user interface that I preferred that was more captivating on that, to me, and the feedback it was giving. The software that I use when I edit, the different visuals it gives me, where people might be, not as in tune to that and maybe need different numbers and metrics. I'm more into that. So, I mean, it's the same way, don't teachers teach to be captivating? Don't you want to be captivating? Don't you want to be using universal design for learning, multiple expressions of learning, so kids aren't getting just a lecture, that they're getting multimedia? I think that's weak. I think it's weak. Here's some comments from that. Okay, one of the comments. So what I'm doing is I'm theming out some of the comments So what I tell you, these aren't standalone comments. These kind of represent comments which are in some themes or what would be constructs. So one is, I find it disturbing that kids of primary school age need a smartphone or tablet in order to do their homework. Somebody wrote that. So this person, I find it disturbing. So, okay, you find it disturbing. I disagree. I don't find it disturbing. I think it's a natural progression, a natural evolution. I think the phone is a tool. It's here to stay. It adds efficiency. It levels the playing field with the universal design for learning. And those are all positive attributes. Again, everything has a positive attribute. Everything has a negative. I mean, you could argue that back to the phone, back to the TV, back to the radio. So yeah, the other part is there's things we're not going to have to memorize and teach anymore. Do we have to teach the state capitals? Do we have to teach the state capitals? No. Why do we need to teach the state capitals? If we can teach, here's how to do a search, an internet search, okay? So you can find the capital or whatever, then that's great. You know how to do the search, you need the capital. You don't need to start spending time and filling your mind and doing all of this with this what I call Jeopardy information, that you're just trying to recall. Forget that. And the amount of time you free up then for instruction, which has more to do with problem solving and divergent learning, and constructing solutions from information. This is a good thing. I mean, okay. The next one, my 4-year-old granddaughter has an iPad and an iPhone, but isn't constantly on them because she's encouraged to do other things. Her parents switch their phones off after 7 o'clock. Despite running a business, they don't use their phones whilst they are out and about with our granddaughter, and it's never allowed at the dinner table. I've no time for people whose lives are so empty they are glued to social media all the time. Okay, good parenting. Responsible parenting right here. Responsible parenting. Yes, devices, and there's a time to use it, and there's a time when not to use it. Okay, nice job. Yeah, a parent, you see an 8-year-old with a phone, and, who's just like addicted to the phone, and not that you don't see the 8-year-old and the parents, but the 8-year-old addicted to the phone. The 8-year-old didn't buy the phone. So, parent bought the phone, parents paying the plan. So, all right. Another post. I can't see anything wrong with children using technology. I think the earlier they start, the better. Yeah, I think that's accurate. It's ubiquitous. It's going to be here, and kids get familiar with it. Now, the fact I can't see anything wrong. Well, yeah, I mean, anything that is a technology like that, and also that can interface you with the outside world. And people which might not have your best interests at hand. There is a wrong side. I mean, so you have to be aware, but it's not like you need a driver's license and then you get your first phone. So, all right, here's one. Never mind how the kids behave. What about their parents? I have 2 sons, and when they come around our house with their wives and bring the grandkids with them, they are all on their phones virtually all of the time. I tell them about it, and it seems it is me that is the odd one out. The world is now addicted to smartphones. Disgusting. Thank goodness I only need to make calls and simple texting. The rest I can do without. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lack of social awareness. I mean, it's like if you have your Christmas gathering, or family gathering or whatever, and everybody pulls out their devices and they're just interacting with their devices and not socializing, that's completely inappropriate for that social setting. Do you have your device with you? Can you check it? Can there be maybe a little bit of time after everybody's eaten and the adults are talking and the kids want to do a little bit of gaming or something like that? Yeah, that's fine. There's not a problem with that. But this is adult. This is parenting. This is being an adult, having social awareness and also sense of self. I talked about in the last podcast, so many people having to get validated, having their sense of self, their validation, because I have, these many Facebook likes. Look at my 8,102 friends, of which I haven't met 8,000, of them. So, it is completely external manipulation. And as long as people thrive on that and just beg for it and suffer this depression when they check and they haven't gotten the number of likes, or they get a dislike. They get a dislike or a comment that is, negative or neutral, or they don't know how to interpret it. Come on. Like I said in my last post, I posted a very comprehensive blog response to that. And at the very end, I said, 1, I don't care if you like it. I don't care if you dislike it. I don't care if you retweet it. And I don't care if you share it. Doesn't matter to me. I don't go in. It matters not to me. If you have a question about, you have a comment, that's fine. And I'll respond to the comment. If you want to email me something about it, yeah, that's fine. I'll, evaluate it and email you back. But yeah, am I going to look and say, oh, I put all this time into this and it's really great, and it was only shared 7 times and it looks like it only got 2 Facebook likes. I'm not on Facebook, but I can see some of those metrics. I'm like, I don't care. That's not the judge of, I know this is quality work that I've done, and I know this is going to impact my audience. You guys, you're smart folks. You want to hear this from the safety doc, which I appreciate. So yeah. It's crazy. Okay. So here's another quote. It's their job, when we're talking like Apple, Google, Motorola, so on, it's their job to make and sell phones. It's not really their job to dare if anyone become addicted to them or not. So why should they? If anything, the more people become addicted, the more money they'll make. And so why would they want to change that? True. I mean, again, if you are making a video game, if you're making a phone, if you're making clothing, if you're making whatever, you want to make it so people are as interested in it as they can possibly be. I mean, think of right now, all the professional athletic stadiums, Lambeau Field in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I attended games in the 80s when literally, I mean, it was like a scoreboard which would tell you the score, and that was it. And now they have, because it has to be the fan experience. The fan experience, overpaying for everything, that was there. And of course, sitting on the bleachers, and they had the old light system on the stadium. I mean, it was just the way that it was fine, but for right now, multi-million dollar, 90-foot long by 40-foot high definition screens on each end. And but it's something like that. These elaborate sound systems, people need to be able to get in and get real-time Wi-Fi so they can access whatever they need to do or updates on the game. I mean, we had a guy sitting in front of us who had that set of headphones that would have the little antenna that would come out, steel antenna, and he would listen to the radio. So like if a player went down and got hurt, like you had no idea what the update was. And all of a sudden this guy ahead of us be like, oh, like they've just said, like, they think it could be something to do with an Achilles or whatever. And I mean, that was your information. So, this is all over, it's that you have to be this, super saturated and all of that. And to be honest, like that stuff's kind of cool. Like I don't think they shouldn't be doing that, but the technology has evolved. It's awesome stuff. It's an awesome time we live in. It's awesome that you can sit down and see something like that. I'm like, whoa, like to experience something like that in the audio and the stuff that they have. But yeah, I don't walk away from it. I don't know, like it hasn't changed my life substantially. It's just, it's cool technology. And I think it's neat to showcase that. So anyway, let me get to the last one here. Well done to them. What posters on here are failing to recognize when they are parent bashing is that although we can control what happens at home, and I do, beyond the age of 11, when they are out on their own, so kids, when they're out on their own after age 11, you can have no control. They borrow each other's phones, etc., use computers during school breaks at the schools. Kids have to use the internet to do and submit homework. So short of locking them in the garage, what can you do? Okay, so this person kind of is like, this pertains to all of you, but not to me because like I've got it figured out for my kid. Again, I'm taking posts which are pretty redundant in theme, but so yeah, I mean, hyper control is horrible. I mean, this hyper control over kids, you're thinking, this is, again, I did a podcast on this a couple of weeks ago on the parents outside of Cleveland that nixed the 8th grade field trip because they didn't want the kids going to Washington, D.C. because they thought it was a terrorist target. It'd be too dangerous. Statistically, the risk of being killed on the bus trip there and back was the same as being killed in Washington, D.C. in an act of terror. Both were minuscule, several times smaller than being hit by lightning. But, you know, this is this whole thing of hyper helicopter parents. And as a university instructor, I see this too, of the number of students who have the parents sign off so they can also see the student's grades, so they can contact the instructor, even though like the student might be 20, 22 or whatever. But I don't know. I think this hyper protectionism type thing. And Aaron Clary talks about it in his book in Reconnaissance Man. You know, kids need to be able to get out there and do things on their own. What you need to do is to have discussions, foster open discussions and trust with your kids. Not that they're always going to do what you expect them to do, but that you can talk to them about social media. Hector Solis, the Awareness Podcast, check that out. Talks a lot about, grooming, sex trafficking, but again, how social media plays a role substantially into those. And it's not just, you think kids who would naturally be targeted, I guess, for that. Some of these are kids who are coming from stable 2-parent families and they're sitting there, right in the family room with mom and dad and brother and sister. And at the same time, they are having this, what is considered at that time, a benign conversation back and forth with someone who might have followed them on social media because they saw a video that they posted where they karaoke'd a song just normally, but in the room. And what happened? The groomer watched the song and studied the image and saw a couple posters in the room and saw like, oh, you're into like the Hello Kitty thing and you're like into this. And then saw that, person, that child out and started to make some connections and stuff like that. So, it's so complicated with, but we have to have reconnaissance. You have to let kids experience the world and have that discussion as a parent with them. Let me take a pause for the cause here and thank John Grants and the 405 Media, the 405media.com out of Los Angeles, California, the Safety Doc Podcast, 2 p.m. PST daily out of the 405 Media Los Angeles, 405media.com. Hey, the show is big in California. That's our flagship audience. But guess what? We are big in France and the Russian Federation. I think we had 18 downloads of the last podcast from the Russian Federation. So I think you have to negotiate there. You have to like trade things just to get access to download the Safety Doc Podcast. I don't know. But the Russian Federation, for all of you listening out there, thank you very much. So, all right. And a thank you to Sprigeo, S-P-R-I-G-E-O, Sprigeo.com, the nation's leader in online school bullying, harassment, and threat reporting. Sprigeo, S-P-R-I-G-E-O. If you're not sure, if you're a parent, you're not sure what your school is using as a system for kids to report concerns about bullying or threat of harm to self or others, ask and also suggest, hey, have you checked out Sprigeo, Sprigeo.com, growing around the country and a wonderful system with an emphasis on user interface so kids actually engage with it, Sprigeo.com. So I talked about this Bergen social media addiction scale, okay, which is really this measure now. So we have these two things kind of going on where we have the American Psychological Association and the World Health Organization kind of duking it out on saying, hey, is internet gaming, is this really like an addiction? Can we call this an addiction? So we're going to talk about that in just a moment.
Thank you for tuning in to the Safety Doc Podcast with the nation's leading safety expert, Dr. David Perrodin, author, radio show host, university instructor, researcher, expert witness, and consultant. Powerful testimonials. Dr. Perrodin has a strong reputation as the go-to safety consultant, and he was still able to exceed our expectations. When we went looking for an expert in the field of crisis preparedness and prevention, David was the single person we pursued. Not easy stepping into the touchier subjects of life, but Dr. David pulls it off. Take a listen. Now, back to Dr. David Perrodin and the Safety Doc Podcast.
Okay, we have the Bergen social media addiction scale over here on the burner, warming up, and I'm going to get into a short article from November 29th, 2016 from Forbes by David DeSalvo. It's called Huge Study on Internet Gaming Addiction Turns Up Controversial Results. So what has happened since then is the World Health Organization has identified gaming as a category. It's called a DSM, or it's basically a medical categorization, not a diagnosis, although like most people take the DSM codes and change them into diagnoses, and then you can easily change diagnoses into saying this is a disability area or disorder. So the DSM was only supposed to categorize areas. It wasn't supposed to be diagnoses, but anyway, that's kind of really what happened. So right now, as of just the last couple of weeks, gaming addiction by the World Health Organization has largely become an identified disorder. It has become vetted. But anyway, let's back up a little bit to kind of see how this battle kind of started to unfold. So this is David DeSalvo, November 29th, 2016. All right. Does internet gaming have the makings of a debilitating addiction like gambling? Most likely not, according to the biggest study to date, seeking a link between internet gaming and addiction behavior. I doubt it's exactly that the originators of the term internet gaming disorder hope to find, but in a minute, I'll discuss why is probably what they should have expected. First, some background. A couple of years ago, the American Psychiatric Association, Psychiatric APA, decided to flesh out the term internet gaming disorder by proposing a 9-symptom scale for diagnoses. The list of symptoms include spending increasing amount of time gaming. 1. Reducing interest in other activities. 2. Anxiety when the game isn't accessible. 3. Social withdrawal. 4. And losing opportunities as a result of gaming. 5. Okay, so I don't just said 9, just give me 5. Thanks. Each symptom on the list is equally weighted, and someone has to hit 5 of the 9 to qualify for an addiction diagnosis, but they must also show an overriding factor of feeling a significant distress. So someone might report, hey, I spend hours a day playing games, becoming increasingly isolated from friends and family, and distracted from routine activities, but unless they show signs of significant distress when trying to reduce their gaming time, an addiction diagnosis won't apply. What exactly is significant distress? I don't know. Anyway, for the latest study, researchers surveyed just under 19,000 men and women from the United States, UK, Canada, and Germany. About half of the sample had played internet video games recently, and of that group, between 2 to 3% reported experiencing 5 or more symptoms of the APA's 9-symptom checklist. So 2 to 3% reported experiencing 5 or more of these symptoms. This is a survey checklist. But only between 0.5 and 1% of those reported feeling significant distress when trying to reduce their game time. When you whittle those percentages down, that's a tiny number of people, much less than what's typically found in similar research on gambling addiction, probably the best behavioral addiction comparison, such as going to a casino. So again, they're saying like between 0.5 and 1% of these 19,000 people actually described as being distressing. So by comparison, if you took 19,000 people who have an addiction to working out, which people do. I mean, some people have an addiction to working out. They feel they have to go to the gym every day, or people addiction to running or biking or things like that. And you say, how many of them would feel significant distress if they had to stop? Would it be between 0.5 and 1%? Yeah, probably, or more. So I think it's very normal. If you took anything that people enjoy doing and you have them, halt it. So anyway, Dr. Andrew Przybylewski from the Oxford Internet Institute and one of the study's authors said in a press statement, contrary to what was predicted, the study did not find a clear link between potential addiction and negative effects on health. However, more research grounded in open and robust scientific practices is needed to learn if games are truly as addictive as many fear, which really is what he's saying there is you really need to get qualitative studies. You need to interview people, have, deep interviews over time. And that's where you're going to come out. We can't just get this from a survey. So, does the very professional thing and leaving the door open in that regard. He also added that while the study found a few possible indicators of addictive behavior, importantly, this is a quote, the great majority of gamers, nearly 3 in 4, reported no symptoms at all that we would link to gaming behaviors. So meaning like 75% just walk away. Like, yeah, this game was fun. I love playing games, but yeah, now I'm on to doing something else. So yeah, I'm done. I'm out. I'm mowing the lawn. I'm on a bike ride. I'm cooking and, or I'm shopping, going to this movie, so, whatever. While the results are news in terms of failing to support assumptions about gaming addiction, so this is people want this. People want to blame someone. They want to pathologize. So this study comes out. It says, no, it's not there. Anyway, I don't know. So, kind of goes on. Whatever might make gaming addictive in its own right, if it is addictive, doesn't surface from that list. Remember those 9 things? We'll kind of go through those. I do have those on that Bergen list. The scale seems both too obvious and too vague, and the answers to a survey based on the scale were predictably unenlightening. I agree. I think the scale sucks. So, all right, folks, we got about 12 minutes left. Let's talk about this Bergen social scale. So there's 2 parts of it. The first part, and these are just questions. It's not very long. Like I've got it in front of me. It's 2 pages. And one is about game addiction. The other one is about social media addiction. And they basically, it's a Likert scale. So it's 1 through 5. And it says never, rarely, sometimes, often, or very often. So let's go with the game addiction scale. So this is how they're making their diagnosis. Okay. they're putting their disorder again, which I've said, they're identifying this now as a disorder, the World Health Organization, which only means it should be categorized, but really, truly that quickly just changes into a diagnosis. And pretty soon you're going to see kids coming into school or into college or even adults, and they're going to be trying to be identified in school with a 504, basically with a disability, not special education, but a disability area of saying that they're addicted to gaming. So, whatever, here's the accommodation that we are requesting you provide. Or, at college, the gaming addiction is having this. Or will it be a request for Social Security benefits because they can't work anywhere because they just want to be gaming? Give me a break. Give me a break. Anyway. The game addiction scale. Okay. First question. Do you think about playing a game all day long? Again, remember, never, rarely, sometimes, often, very often. And how many people are just going to answer this to just screw with them? I mean, come on. So, and I don't know what they're kind of attending this toward young adults or, 15 to 25. I don't quite have the range on this, but so, and it doesn't involve online poker games. This is PlayStation, PSP, Nintendo, Game Boy, stuff like that. Okay. The next one. Do you spend increasing amounts of time on games? Increasing amounts, that's vague. What is increasing amounts? And is it increasing amounts over a week? Is it if you have the weekend and more time, you increasing amounts? So, it's bad. It's poorly written, poorly done. Do you play games to forget about real life? What? What the hell's that about? Real life? Well, part of the game could be real life. Maybe, my real life when I was 12 years old, part of my real life was baseball practice. Part of my real life was playing some video games with my friends. It was real life. So that's a subjective statement. What is real life? Me riding do I get on my bike and do I take long bike rides to forget about real life? So is my bike ride not real life? Horrible the way they've done this. So basically what they're doing, and they're asking people to recall in the last 6 months. In the last 6 months, have you? That's always hard to do because we know there's the forgetting curve in memory, and you conflate memories. And like, I don't know where my timeline is. Like, was it 6 months? Was it 8 months? Was it a year? Was it not? So that's also a really poor way to frame things. Have others unsuccessfully tried to reduce your game use? Okay. I mean, I guess you could answer that. Have you felt bad when you were unable to play? What does bad mean? What is bad? Bad is vague. Okay. It's more like a craving, I think. Do you feel that when you're not playing that you want to be playing? That's the question there. It's not like, do you feel bad? I mean, what is bad? Bad's like you've done something wrong, Bad's like, I took my video game and I threw it and I hit somebody and I hurt them or I feel remorse. But I mean, these terms, I work professionally. I work, I'm contracted with a significant company on user-face language. And this is horrible. Bergen, Norway, this survey. Do you have fights with others, for example, family, friends, over your time spent on games? Yeah, I mean, that's objective. That question is okay. Have you neglected other important activities, for example, school, work, sports, to play games? I guess there you're leading the person. You're saying important. So activities such as school, work. Maybe the game is important. Maybe it's a multiplayer game and you have an obligation to your other game members, and maybe it's like a lot of kids have Minecraft accounts right now, and it's cooperation, it's teamwork. Look at the interview I did. I think it was number 18 Safety Doc podcast with Sean Dickers, a professor in multiplayer game design. So, this whole thing of assigning importance, that's subjective. That's leading someone right there. That's a bad question. So let's go over all the way to the social networking part of this. So this gets into social media, the Bergen part. So the first one was gaming. The second one here is social media. All right. The question here is, it leads off with how often during the last year have you? Okay. Last year is a very poor way. Again, 6 months is bad. A year. Like, I don't know what I did exactly a year ago and trying to do that cut point of a year. You might as well say 2 years or 3 years. You're conflating memories. We know there's the memory curve that's been proven. It's been proven in a court of law. Blending, conflating memories. It is bad. That's why these are bad ways to frame things. So, okay. But anyway, let's do it. Again, it's very rarely, sometimes often, very often. How often during the last year have you spent a lot of time thinking about social media or planned use of social media? Very rarely. What? I don't know. All right. Okay. Felt an urge. What? Okay. Urge. Student, a person with a disability, a person with autism. I mean, urge is not a very common word. It's a word if we throw it in and we do a readability of that, like felt an urge to use social media more and more. What is more and more? And when does that happen? I mean, more and more at night, more and more on a weekend, more and more over summer vacation, more and more if you have friends over. I mean, useless. Used social media in order to forget about personal problems. Personal problems? What the hell? That's vague. What's a personal problem? A personal problem could be, you're feeling that you didn't play well in a basketball game, or you need to practice more. It could be that, you didn't have toothpaste to brush your teeth. That could be a personal problem. I mean, what is a personal problem? It could be on social media that you, I guess people aren't going to be able to identify what a personal problem is. It's vague. I don't know what a personal problem really is. And again, people get over, they cope. Is this, I don't know, in order to forget, is it really forget? I mean, is it in order to cope? maybe this is a great thing. What if you had somebody who has an anger issue, and instead of getting angry, you use video games to help them cope and process through what they're feeling? Wasn't that in the movie Field of Dreams, like in the 80s? The development of games to help with conflict and things like that. Terrence Mann. I don't know. And you're not going to have any inter-rater reliability with that question. Okay. In the last year, have you tried to cut down on your use of social media without success? I guess. Have you become restless or troubled if you have been prohibited from using social media? I guess. I'm not sure what troubled. I mean, restless, troubled. I mean, I don't know. Have you, in the last year, have you used social media so much that it has had a negative impact on your job? What is negative impact? What does negative impact mean? Does it mean that you've missed work or studies? Does it, I don't know. It's so subjective. It's just not a good way to do things, folks. We're going to go on the prices right now. Survey says, survey sucks. This Bergen survey is horrible. It's horrible. It's garbage. And now it's been embraced by the WHO. Not the band The Who, which would be kind of cool. The World Health Organization. And so now you have the American Psychiatric Association. It's not going to be long. This will be in DSMs. Kids will be diagnosed with this. Young adults will be diagnosed with this. And pretty soon it's going to be an SSI benefit thing. And it's just going to be like, it's a gaming addiction. Johnny or Sarah, they just love gaming and they're so addicted, and the game is just designed this way and they can't get away from it. We need to take responsibility for our own actions, and parents, we need to take responsibility for their kids' access to not only social media, but hey, remember when cable TV came out, you could block certain channels and things like that? We did that. So yeah, maybe the makers of the iPhone and stuff like that can have some features where parents can go in and block out some things and put some filters on. Doesn't mean the kids aren't going to get it somewhere else. Doesn't mean that if they go over to a friend's place who has HBO and Cinemax, that's unfiltered. But I'm just saying, folks, this disgusts me. I am very black and white on this. This is wrong. This should not be a diagnosis area. And we are stigmatizing video games and video game players. I was a video game player in college. If this was applying to me right now, this would portray me out of someone who is pathologized with a video game disorder, and video games are entertainment. Grand Theft Auto was a comprehensive study out of Harvard University, which did not identify a link between video games and violence, like shooters. It's this whole thing. Like, I'm from Wisconsin. We have kids who deer hunt. Kids can be 5 years old now, kindergartners, and deer hunt. Does it mean that then they are going to translate that into becoming more prone to be active shooters and things like that? So I don't know. I think this is garbage. I think this is a garbage direction, and I want you to know about it and what is happening right now. And this whole stuff of, gaming, video game addiction, and too much video game. My daughter, as I close this out, my daughter reads novels 3 to 4 hours a day, and she's a voracious reader and loves this. Does she have a reading disorder? Because she's reading on her own. She's not interacting with her peers when she's reading. She takes books with her when we go places. If you didn't have a book for her, is she going to miss that? And is she going to want to do that? Probably. So you could morph this. Oh my goodness, she has a literacy disorder. She has a literacy disorder because she craves this. Are there times when she read when she could have been out, working and, doing things outside, and she was inside? Did it keep her away from friends at certain times? I mean, I could go on. Hey, I appreciate you. You're not the typical audience. You are sharp folks. I appreciate you. Thank you for following Safety Doc. Please subscribe on Twitter @SafetyPhD. Check out the website, safetyphd.com. You can link to everything there. YouTube, on Podbean, Stitcher. We are all over the place, Apple Podcast. Please do that. Feel free to comment me. I will respond, comment in the blog. I appreciate it very much. Thank you again. Take care, everybody. And video games. Dun, 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 dun.